Hey guys, so I'm gonna making the second video to help explain the fundamentals of this and help you guys understand more of what's actually going on instead of just putting it together and showing the results. I believe it is really important to understand why stuff works the way they do and why they're done the way they're done. So I will be breaking this down as I said earlier in my other video. The wire for this I actually got from ChatGPT to help show you guys that you don't need to be an expert to start off. You can start off and make a project work just with ChatGPT, just with AI. But I want to also help you guys understand how ChatGPT got where it got, how it got these wirings, why it did what it did. And and so to start off, you're gonna see there's three main parts. So they are the sensor, which is an infrared distance detection sensor. There's your actual board, which is this is the brains of everything. This is where it stores the code. This is what makes this work. Secondly is a breadboard. A breadboard is simply a it's like a whiteboard. It's where you're able to connect everything in just it's just a plain board without these little connections on top. It wouldn't do anything. And then from there you got a small little resistors and blah blah blah. I'll talk about those in a little bit. Okay. So first off, what does this machine do? This machine gets um gets an information from this sensor, which shoots out infrared light, and then does a quick math, which I'll show you right now, and it's able to calculate how far something is based on how fast it received it back. That's all it does. That's it. This machine over here then does the math. So this one gives you the signal. This does the math that I'm talking about, and this is your output. So if something is nearby, which is something I'll talk about in the code, you define what nearby means. If something is nearby, then it'll send a signal to this. It'll do the math, be like, all right, this qualifies as nearby. And then it'll be like, this is gonna be a red or a yellow if it's not too close, but it's in the middle. Or if it's far away, it'll do a green. As simple as that. And so now you understand the fundamentals of what this machine does and how it play each part plays each thing plays its part. Now I'm gonna break down into even more of a deeper understanding. First off, you will see here I have four different pins. All right, so you're gonna have your ground, your VCC, your trigger, and your echo. So your ground, in anything you do, you need a ground in electronics. A ground is basically where the electricity goes back to, all right? So your ground is always going to be labeled on here as ground. As you'll be able to see, it's always ground. And so anything to ground, don't question it. Boom, straight to ground. Now just so the electricity to return, close the circuit. Super simple. From here, you got your VCC. As you're able to see right there, your VCC is where your power is actually going to go in through. So your power goes in through your VCC, and so that is why it's connected to your 5 volts, as you see right here. So VCC is right here. VCC is right here. It'll go through into your 5 volt. And so it goes into your 5 volt on through your ground. And so you might be wondering, what are the other two pins for? Really simple. One of these pins, which is the trigger, is what actually sends what makes this thing read. All right, what makes it work. So if you plug in just the VCC in the ground, which is just basically just the power, this thing won't do anything. It just shoot out infrared. That's it. But once you connect it to this, you're able to have a trigger. So here it will say every 10 microseconds you will send a pulse. And so that each 10 microseconds is sending a pulse of infrared. And so it says that's all that VCC does. It tells it to send a pulse. The trigger, the trigger makes it. Once the trigger makes it do that, then the echo goes back and tells it was a pulse of 10 microseconds. It came back in in 100 microseconds, and it will say, okay, that's all I got. I send this many pulses in this much return. That's all it does. All it does. So your VCC and your ground are your power. Your echo and your trigger are your data. That's all it is. And so your trigger, as I said, it triggers this thing to work and how often to work. Your echo is getting everything back and sending it to here. Now there's a lot more complexity into this. I will not go into complete depth of this. It is a very complex but in-depth explanation of how this works. In simple terms, it just does this is really quick and simple computer. So you have your actual computer right here, this right here, and that is where you store your memory and all that, and you have all your connections talking to this computer, and so it receives its information, and the computer cannot work without its software or its code, in other words. So it has all this information, and now it's like, all right, what do you want me to do with it? That's where the coding part comes in. I will show you about how you code these things in a little bit. But if you put a code and you simply tell it, if the data from here tells you to do this, I want to do this other action. It's just a basic, if this happens, I want to do this. So in this case, if this sensor detects that an object is certain centimeters or millimeters, however you feel, if it's this certain centimeters away, I want to do this action. In this case, I'm like, if I want it to be 10 centimeters or more, then I want it to be green. And so it does a quick math and everything, and it will go over here and they'll send power to the green. And same thing for yellow, same thing for red. They're just numbers. And so you might be wondering, okay, how is the lights actually wired? The lights are wired in a similar manner, actually more simple than this sensor over here. If you have ever learned anything about electronics, you'll know you need a closed circuit. You need a positive and a negative. And so your negative is actually going to be right here, which is, these are just numbers. I'm sorry. These are just numbers which help your computer tell which one of these pins is what. That's all it is. So you're able to easily classify with each of these pins so you can power. So these right here are your positives and your ground is going to be your negative in this case. So your positive goes and gets turned on, right? And so if this sensor tells you that it is 10 centimeters away, this computer is going to calculate and know that 10 centimeters means green. And so you will know 10 centimeters mean green, and green is going to mean number, what is it in this case? Number 5. And so number 5 now is open with a electronic switch in here. You cannot see it, but it's there. Will run electricity into the LED. The LED will return it to ground, and that's it. That's simple. The resistors are always necessary no matter what. LEDs always need a resistor. Our resistor are simply a way to slow down current. You can think of it like that. It's more complex, but you can think of it like that. These LEDs want more power, but if they have that power, they will burn out. Or think about it, if you really want something and you keep trying for it, you will eventually hurt yourself. So these are kind of that coach, that regulator. They're okay. You can have it, but you cannot have all of it at one time. You will have to have it controlled, and that's what this does. And that's the simplest of it. That's the fundamentals of it. The code is something that I will get into in a later video, though. That one I also use ChatGPT, but all it does is saying, if this happens, I want this action to be done. And that is the fundamentals of coding. I will break that down in another video, though, to give you an overall fundamental understanding of this. I hope you guys enjoy. Any recommendations would be really appreciated. Thank you so much. Have a great day.